Lots of great Tesla stock news today, including a bullish rumor, and Tesla just broke ground on the lithium refining facility.
We're aiming to finish construction next year and then reach hopefully full production about a year later. This is extremely fast by normal standards.
Let's go through all of today's Tesla stock news. Let's start with the bullish rumor. Starting on June 1st, Tesla Shanghai factory will not allow workers to bring their cell phones into the workshop, and Model 3 Highland, the refreshed Model 3, will begin trial production. How credible is this source? Well, on December 12th, he did tweet that the Model Y production in Shanghai has been reduced from over 1,000 units to about 700 units per shift, and that seemed to be true. Rob Mauer also reported on that. And at 3 a.m. Pacific time, he tweeted that the factory now is shut down, which Reuters confirmed at 7 a.m. So certainly there is some credibility behind this account, but also on March 24th, we saw this. According to insiders, Model 3 Highland will begin production at Giga Shanghai early next month. When it's a rumor, it's difficult to understand exactly what's the context, so maybe this was supposed to be just prototypes that were produced in April. Clearly, the vehicle was not launched. So take this new rumor with a grain of salt, but I think this checks out. From Reuters in November, we found out that the Shanghai Gigafactory will put the redesigned Model 3 into production in the third quarter of 2023, which would imply that it should be launched before September ends. Looking at the Model 3 inventory, I think it is experiencing the Osborne effect, where people stop buying it because they think there's going to be a newer version very, very soon. But also, we did have this jump of inventory levels. But looking at the past inventory, for example, you can see even when inventory was going down, sometimes you just have a few days where it just goes up and then it goes down and then it goes up again. So I wouldn't make too much of it yet. I would want to see what's going to happen over the next few weeks to have some strongly conclusive data. But the inventory does seem on the higher side, including in Europe right now, which overall I think is a good strategy for Tesla, because that does create a little bit more demand. And if you look at the deliveries in Europe, specifically at daily reporting countries, we are clearly way ahead. Way ahead of the previous quarter, as you can see here. And no wonder that in the auto industry, an inventory level of about 60 days is considered normal and actually ideal, because people want different interiors, wheels, they want different kinds of colors. If you only have, let's say, a few vehicles in the lot, and I want to buy a vehicle today, and let's say I want a black vehicle, white interior, and if you have that configuration except it's a white vehicle, yeah, I'm not that interested in that vehicle then. Tesla currently is at 15 days, so until that number climbs to at least 30, I don't see a problem there, and really up until 60, it would still be okay. The stock may freak out because it creates a bad investing experience, but it does create a better consumer experience. Tesla today broke ground on the $375 million Texas lithium refinery facility.
And as you can see, we've got the earth-moving equipment already here, so we're going to begin construction immediately. We're aiming to finish construction next year and then reach hopefully full production about a year later. This is extremely fast by normal standards.
That's really good news. Tesla is going to have a lithium refining facility in about 1 year. Well, usually, according to ChatGPT, it can take about 2 to 4 years. Tesla is going to do that in a little over a year. That's Tesla speed for you.
But that's how we do things. So the capability we're aiming for is approximately 1 million vehicles worth of battery-grade lithium. But the potential is there to expand beyond that number as needed. We intend to continue to use suppliers of lithium, so it's not that Tesla will do all of it, but we thought it's important to address what we think is, as we look ahead a few years, a fundamental choke point in the advancement of electric vehicles is the availability of battery-grade lithium. And lithium ore itself for mining is actually quite common. So lithium is actually a very common element on Earth. It's present basically in every country. So it's not that there's a shortage of lithium ore to mine, but there is a shortage of really heavy industry refinement of lithium to battery grade. And battery grade lithium actually has to be extremely precise, ultra pure, because if you have any impurities in the lithium, it causes degradation of the battery. So the purity requirements are extremely high. We've got a number of innovations that we think will be quite effective in the refining of lithium that haven't been done before. And maybe that's a good point to hand it over to Drew.
Huh. Innovation from Tesla. Who would have seen that coming? Definitely not Gordon Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the process in particular, Turner, why don't you give a little rundown of what we're doing here?
Sure, yeah, happy to run through it. My name is Turner Caldwell. I lead our battery, raw material, and recycling efforts at Tesla. So speaking to some of the innovation that we're going to be pursuing on site, the conventional process, and I won't get too into the weeds, but it's a heavy sulfuric acid consumer, it's a heavy sodium hydroxide consumer, and as a result, the byproducts that are produced from that conventional process are challenging to manage. You end up with a lot of sodium sulfate that no one really wants. Here, what we're going to be using are much more inert reagents. We'll be consuming soda ash, sodium carbonate, very common industrial chemical. We'll be consuming lime, again, very common industrial chemical. And it's a much more direct route that consumes 20% less energy all in. It consumes reagents that are 60% less costly. And all in, the production cost is around 30% lower on a unit cost basis. But the real key thing here is that the byproduct that's produced is much more inert. It's basically a mix of sand and limestone. And the team here has been working really hard on finding beneficial use opportunities for that sand and limestone to try to feed that into construction materials so that we end up as a net environmentally very neutral site.
Less cost, better product, and more environmentally friendly. That's Tesla. This continuous and relentless innovation is one of the biggest reasons why I am so invested into Tesla stock.
Yeah, and I think one of the great things about both working on this lithium refinery here in Corpus and the cathode facility that we have in Austin is that we see the end-to-end impacts of any decisions we make on the technical side on how we design the battery cathode or specify the purity of the lithium so that we avoid unnecessary complication along that path. The whole dig it a ditch, fill it, and dig it again that tends to happen in the material supply chain. We are very intentionally sort of eating our own dog food, as sometimes they say, to make sure that we don't hold ourselves to standards that are unnecessary while still delivering an awesome end product and cutting out all the inefficient process steps along the way. In fact, we're looking at 30% fewer process steps in this refinery than a typical refinery while still achieving what we need to hit our cathode quality and performance targets.
Yeah, so some of that is actually removing some of the purification steps that you would put in if you were a standalone lithium producer, because ultimately what matters is impurity levels in the final product, not in the intermediates that get handed from supplier to supplier.
Yeah, I mean, like the most efficient form of lithium to use is lithium hydroxide instead of lithium. We're getting a little technical here, but lithium hydroxide instead of lithium carbonate. But what a lot of current industry refining things will do is they'll convert it to lithium hydroxide, then convert it to lithium carbonate, then convert it back to lithium hydroxide. That's what we mean by dig the ditch, fill the ditch, dig it again.
Yeah.
So we want to stop that and just go straight to high purity lithium hydroxide.
This is one way how Tesla is able to benefit from this vertical integration that a lot of other automakers are never going to really experience. And that is one reason why Tesla is going to be able to keep a cost relatively low.
And a couple of points about this location. It really is an ideal location for us to have this lithium refinery, both because of the strong community support, but also the talent base that's in Corpus Christi and in oil and gas refining actually is very applicable to what we're doing here. It's close to Austin. There's a really good deep water port, so we can bring in the spodumene, which is the rock input to this refinery from all over North America through an easy path, and it's also directly on rail. So we can also bring in the rock and send the outgoing product via rail. So truly an awesome site with a fantastic community support. Can't thank you enough. and really excited to get this project in motion.
Yeah, and I really want to emphasize this is a very sort of clean, Turner sort of alluded to it, but a very clean refinery. So it's not like there's no toxic emissions or anything. You could live right in the middle of the refinery and not suffer any ill effects. So a very clean operation.
It sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? But actually, that's how I made most of my money. I tried opportunities that seemed too good to be true, and in many cases, they turned out to be too good to be true. But in a few cases where that was not the case, I made a lot of money while other people said, that's just impossible. That can never happen. That will never work. Making money online 16 years ago? Are you crazy? Turns out I wasn't. Now it's so common to see someone make money online, just like it will later eventually be common to see other manufacturers use gigapresses, but in the meantime, Tesla will take the lead, and it will be very difficult to catch up to Tesla.
As we look forward into the future, obviously, day one, it's designed for this spodumene concentrate. It's from hard rock mines. But as we start to have recycled batteries coming back, the factory is designed to be feed flexible. And so we'll be actually processing lithium out of black mass, as well as from brine and clay operations that are also ramping up in North America. And so as we view this site as having a major focus on regionalizing the lithium supply chain, it's all about being feed flexible and taking advantage of all of those feeds, including manufacturing scrap and end-of-life batteries.
Yep. So a virtuous circle of battery materials in North America for North American factories. Really excited to set that, agenda in motion, both in Austin and here in Corpus Christi today.
Thank you all so much.
Elon shares details about free trials for full self-driving. Once FSD is super smooth, not just safe, we will roll out a free, I assume 1 month, trial for all cars in North America. Then extend to the rest of the world after we ensure it works well on local roads and regulators approve it in that country. I think perhaps the current version of full self-driving is maybe not ready for free trials as of right now, this very moment, but Elon is saying that the next version should be perhaps version 12, as there are so many major improvements. And maybe in some parts of the US, it would be a good idea to maybe already do free trials, but where I am in Vancouver City in Canada, I think if you bought FSD, yeah, you will be more careful using it and you will try it out each time after a new update comes out. But if you just try a free trial and it's not good for you, you probably won't try it again after a newer version comes out unless you see very clear improvements that it is definitely for sure going to work for you. I think that first experience is quite important. And it's probably safe to assume if you are trying a free trial, you may not be as familiar with FSD and Tesla overall, therefore you may think it's more capable than it actually is. But for myself, when I drive, unless I am in a rush, I do prefer to drive with FSD beta on. This is good news for Tesla, but bad news for BYD. Upon resignation at one of BYD's factories, workers at that particular factory received a reply stating that the quota for resignations this month, for April, has been filled. I saw some people commenting that you can of course resign at any time and you can leave the company at any time, but if that quota is filled, then maybe you don't get the pay for the hours already worked, which were not paid yet. So maybe you just lose that, I'm not sure. And it appears that there are 2 factories affected, these 2 specifically. Why are we leaving though? Well, the article says this: the recent reduction in workload and salary decline were cited as direct reasons for some workers leaving. So less demand for BYD vehicles, it appears, at least the vehicles that are produced at these 2 factories. Lucid just reported its earnings, and well, earnings per share is just a little bit worse than expected. It really came in within expectations, but the revenue is down by a lot. It only came in at 149.4 million versus 211 million expected, and also their cash then down significantly. Nothing new really here, but they also adjusted their 2023 production guidance from 10 to 14,000 to now just about 10,000. And no one will be surprised looking at Lucid stock. It is down in the after hours almost 10%. And if you look deeper, it actually gets even more interesting. Of course, we know that they only delivered 1,400 vehicles, but produced only 300 in Q1. But they didn't give any reservation number anymore. Previously in Q4, it was at 28,000. Now, they didn't mention any numbers. Gary just calls that sketchy. Down below, you will find a link to support this channel on Patreon. This video explains why Tesla board members are now buying more Tesla stock. My name is Matt Posius. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.